Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Point on this Tuesday morning when the traffic seems to have caught a lot of people by surprise. I myself moved earlier to leave my house to try to beat the traffic, only to actually face far more traffic than I had to face yesterday, which was interesting, but I was able to still get here on time. Our usual Tuesday contributor, he is also on the way, but he also is facing currently some tremendous traffic, so hopefully he'll be here soon. But fortunately, those of you who are coming over from watching AM Prime earlier this morning will know that my co-host, he is here. He has been here since 6 a.m. And of course, the conversation continues as he and Camille always says. Mr. Keaton Shaw, good morning. How are you? Your second morning doing AM Prime. We didn't speak about it much this morning, pulling double duty. I know my turn is tomorrow, but how was the traffic? Because you had to move a lot earlier than I did.
Oh no, quite frankly, the biggest thing was actually that cold water hitting you at 4 o'clock in the morning. But the traffic, there's been absolutely none yesterday and this morning when I left home, because I left home at around 5 o'clock. The place was still dark, there was no sight of the sun, and the cars on the road were down to minimal. It's just a regular vehicular traffic on the road with no backup, no major stoppages due to any unforeseen circumstances or situations. So, quite frankly, I've been getting to work, in 20 minutes?
Right.
And that feels so good, because that's why I was laughing just now a little bit, because I know that tomorrow morning you're most likely to sit in the chair.
Oh, I'm going to take 5 minutes to get here.
It may be the first time that I'm facing the traffic for the last 2 months. Tomorrow morning, we'll see what happens.
Right.
But I laughed a bit because I'm just here, usually I'm the one to face the music when it comes to the traffic, and you had to face it this morning. And unfortunately, Camille had to face it as well. He'll be on his way very shortly, but, good luck, my friend.
I forgot, at least in my situation, coming out of Cascade St. Anne's and going on the Savannah, for whatever reason, Tuesday always was the worst day of the week. I don't know why. I don't know what's so special about this day that causes extra traffic. I'm not sure to what extent it had to do. Maybe there were parents who understood, look, rest and reflect. I'm not going to bother to send my child to school. That's a waste of time. Some parents would have wanted a child to go to school regardless because, maybe to interact with their classmates, maybe because they just don't want to break from the routine or want to establish a routine. It's the first day back. But I don't know if there was any difference, but I know that Tuesdays, and it's something I forgot. Luckily, I moved early enough that it didn't, you didn't have to hold down the fort by yourself again.
In my previous term, where I worked before entering the prestigious WESN, I used to face that traffic around the Queen's Park Savannah almost every morning. And that was quite a headache, because the traffic that you may face on the Lady Young versus the traffic that you may face coming into Port of Spain. You see, even coming into Port of Spain, you still tend to move a bit quickly, not as hastily as you would really want to, because on average it will take you between 45 minutes to an hour to get from where I live in East Trinidad to Port of Spain if I was to leave home at 6 o'clock in the morning. Around the Queen's Park Savannah alone, if you exit from Chancellor around the Savannah, so not far from you actually, where you exit as well, that's a lot of traffic around the Savannah, and that's almost standstill at times.
Believe it or not, because I feel like one of the biggest weaknesses of the Savannah is the traffic light just before Holy Name Convent and Port of Spain General Hospital, that stretch going towards Charlotte Street. And when I was younger and having to go to school, of course, I would have to pass by there every day. To get out of Cascade St. Anne's, you basically have to go around the Savannah. It's a lot better now. I think the traffic lights are set up that traffic around the Savannah flows a lot easier, at least around that bend. I don't know if that's causing any issues for the people coming out of Belmont on that junction. But it's a lot better now, so kudos to whoever made whatever minor tweak to the timing of the lights, because I believe there might have been not a big or major overhaul of the system, but just a slight tweak to the timing, it seems to me, on how that functions. And for once, at least in my individual anecdotal observation, we kind of got something right and it's working reasonably well.
Well, quite frankly, there needs to be an overhaul of the system, because us speaking about traffic is nothing new. I mean, there were times that I was delayed on this program because of traffic. However, the bigger issue for me is that this not only points to situation, if there was a national emergency, what is our plan?
Yes.
If that is the case, I mean, Port of Spain truly has more or less one real exit. Yes, you can pass through Santa Cruz, but even so, the arteries in and out of Port of Spain will be absolutely blocked.
It's not just one real exit. Whichever direction you want to go, there is very, very finite in a small number, right? So we're not talking finite, but there's a large number, right? It's a small number. And why that's a problem is, well, you only need one accident, and the impact it has for any and all arteries are way too severe. All it takes, as I said before, one pothole. We saw that when they had the sinkhole on Cocorite just before peaks, and that affected traffic through St. James all the way down to Woodbrook, apparently. It was kind of shocking how that situation in the west affected traffic so far east.
All around, yes, it certainly did, because it was very difficult. I remember that day very clearly. It was very difficult to move from this studio in Woodbrook to St. James, which honestly is right down the road from here.
This is why I think people need to understand the reason why I am so against now at this point, because we can't afford it, right? Against short-term expenditure and short-term thinking, and that is transfer and subsidies. And I would love to see more capital expenditure, and I think that's why a lot of economists want to see that as well, is because we need our transportation system, the overall policy, the overall mission and vision. I know mission and vision at times seems like these hoity-toity words that businesses, but what they do is they give you a very overall, they don't necessarily look at the details and look to plan out everything. We need an overhaul on the overall just general idea of what we want our national transportation to be, and some sort of mass transit. Again, we've spoken about this before more than once. Whatever we come at to, right? Because when I'm in New York and Toronto, I didn't have a car. I loved it. I loved it moving about more than I do driving around Trinidad.
It's a similar situation when I was in the UK. You know, traveling in the UK, though very costly, the system is quite efficient there. But it's a similar conversation I had with Dr. Valmiki Arjun on AM Prime this morning. When you focus on transportation, simple things such as improving our carriageways, our roadways in TNT can help the economic situation. You'd be surprised the efficiency of transporting goods from the port to a business in Superior. That time would be reduced, the cost of fuel would be reduced, and you're able to conduct more business efficiently. But not only in terms of improving the roadway, what needs to be done is a complete overhaul of our traffic plan. I've always stated it. I think for a capital city, Port of Spain has too many intersections and junctions where it is controlled by traffic lights. And because of that, that alone is what causes traffic.
Well, I mean, our very own former mayor of Port of Spain, he tried a radical approach. It didn't necessarily work. I'm not too sure how well that will work because of the limited, I think, like New York has some large roadways around Manhattan itself. So I'm not talking about on the outside of the city. I'm talking about that you will use to go from one end of Manhattan, the heart of New York, to the other end. And those are 3-lane roadways, right? Whereas with Port of Spain, outside of Ryson Road, we're stuck with basically one-lane carriages. I think a lot of it comes down to, look, at least government needs to decentralize. This is where digitization helps. If you're not stuck with paper records, it's easy because now information could flow from one office to the next. And then once we free up that, we don't have to have people coming into Port of Spain to do certain things with regards to their paperwork with the government. That might not solve all of the problem. I still think some sort of mass transit plan would be required. But we also, I think, as a country need to identify that, look, Port of Spain is at one end, the northwest is one end. We need to find ways to put value and grow both private businesses, infrastructure, government services To the east, to the southeast especially, roadworks, etc. It's one of the reasons why I like the Toko port plan. I won't necessarily go to a whole port or a drop-off point, pick-up point, well, in my mind, that's what I think of it. Something to encourage development, more east, more south, particularly more southeast.
I think also, Sean, what we should also, acknowledge is the fact that for a nation of 1.4 million citizens, to be exact, 1.399, we have roughly 1 million cars on the road, which is exceedingly high, not only in terms of our population, but also in terms of the size of our island and our roadways.
And our roadways, yes.
And furthermore, the mere fact that TNT alone consumes roughly 1 billion gallons of fuel per year. That alone tells you. So if we aren't able to deal with these situations or actually sort out these problems, and they're very simple, they're not very difficult to recognize, they're not very difficult to understand. There may be some complexity in finding a solution to deal with them, but we haven't even made an effort or started to actually try and deal with them. All we've done, as you mentioned, the pothole, or should I say the manhole due to the major water leak in Concrete, the traffic that caused throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Look at the independence celebrations. When half of TNT came into Port of Spain to view fireworks around the Queen's Park Savannah, the traffic that caused, some people were stuck around the Savannah for 3 hours. My sister actually told me that she took an hour and a half to get from the Cape Park Hotel just to the President's house.
Yeah.
So with all that in mind...
And that happens with any event.
Exactly. So with all that in mind, with all these factors that you add to the equation, have we really taken seriously? Because, the other fact as well is also the mere fact that you rarely see the TTPS out on the roadways guiding traffic when instances like this happen. I cannot report to you that was the case with Concrete.
Right.
Yeah, I can't. I was out.
No, I think they were out. They were out then.
I cannot report.
But when you have
Independence
Day, I think it's very obvious you should have at all intersections around something like Savannah, officers or what happened to? Didn't we have traffic wardens for the Ministry of Transport?
So,
I don't understand.
You do have traffic wardens, but with the slightest
nobody wants
drizzle,
to do a night shift.
With the slightest drizzle, and I mean the absolute slightest of drizzle, like a pigeon wing flapping its feathers and a water drop falls. Traffic wardens do not come out to work. Bear that in mind. And this is what I'm saying. We recognize the situation, but nothing has ever been done to focus on our traffic plan and our national emergency plan. Because, Sean, if a pigeon flaps its wings, we're in trouble.
Keaton, we have to take a break so that we could bring in our contributor. But I will just close with this. When is the last time you've seen a police vehicle stay patiently in line in traffic? I honestly have never seen that happen. I always see the blue sirens flashing. They just conveniently as emergencies taking place when they have traffic. That's something we need to ask the ASP. I'll put that in my notes. Let's take a break right now. When we come back, we will welcome Mr. Camille Pascal, as well as to get into, well, the two big stories of the day. One, I think we spoke about both maybe yesterday, but they keep going. We'll talk about them when we get back.
Chantwell Vibes, a musical tribute to Andre Tanker, Saturday, September 24th, 2022, Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m. Featuring Three Canal, Mavis John, Ataclan, Empress Ajay, Stacy Sobers, and panist Natasha Joseph. Tickets $300. Available at Crosby's Music Center, St. James. Extra Foods, Rima, Grand Bazaar, and Endeavour. Online at Island E-Tickets. Committee members at 678-2843 or 482-3111. Central Bank box office on the day of the event. Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Marte Main Road, La Puerta. A musical tribute to Andre Tanker. Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Central Bank Auditorium. Showtime, 7:30 p.m.
Fan Zone, Your reliable, authentic supplier has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzoneTT.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
In these COVID times, things are a little different. You may have some skepticism when it comes to going to the hospital or going into the doctor because of crowds or because of so many people being present. We are now in the world of telemedicine.
Telemedicine is the innovation of using technology to treat patients at a distance.
Zakia is here today. She's going to show us a little bit of what she does as part of her at-home exercise routine. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the Content Capital. Thank God I didn't say AM Prime. That may have been stuck in my head still. Nevertheless, it is my pleasure and privilege now, on behalf of Sean and myself, welcome back to Talking Point our youth commentator, former youth parliamentarian, and a good friend of ours, Mr. Kemuel A.O. Pascal. Good morning, Kemuel.
Good morning, Kemuel.
Good morning, Keaton. Good morning, Sean. Good morning to all of you this morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Kemuel, could you just remind us what the A.O. stands for?
Avery for A and O'Keefe is O.
Right, Kemuel Avery O'Keefe Pascal. By the way, look at this wide shot.
Wow.
Hold on, just for one quick second, look at this wide shot. What we've done here in Talking Points is that we've actually achieved racial harmony here in Trinidad and Tobago. Think about it for 1 second.
It's also interesting that we are semi-matching. We're all wearing our black jackets today, which is not planned, although our shirts are quite different. Yes. So we have achieved multiculturalism of wardrobe. Now let's see if we can achieve that. If we can achieve that of our perspectives and our ideas.
Certainly. Well, Mr. Avery O'Keefe Pascal, pleasure to have you with us once more. And yesterday, Sean and I were discussing what was, I guess, the biggest news of the day, and that is teachers actually staying home to rest and reflect following the dissatisfaction with the CPO's 4% wage offer. They've indicated that they see it as a victory, as a success. Whilst many have issued their support for teachers and the stance that teachers have taken, there are also many within the general population who have stated otherwise, saying that students should not be held as a pawn by tutor for negotiations of any sort.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Immediately when I heard what they were intending to do, I asked myself, what is the impact that one day is going to have? Because it's the start of the new school year, not just the school term, but the new school year, the new academic year, and you are essentially choosing that particular day to rest and reflect. But you have just chosen one day. What impact is that going to have? This isn't a sustained or continuous effort. So essentially what you did is you basically caused parents to send their children out to school to be unsupervised. Some children were actually turned back. Some parents actually called to school to pick up their students at about 10 a.m. And now students who were eager to come back out to school, they just didn't feel that same amount of energy based on the teachers not coming out.
I have an interesting question. If this was the States, I do believe that the National Parent Teachers Association, on behalf of parents, could consider taking a lawsuit to tutor. Because as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, is it that teachers aren't allowed to strike?
Teachers, any person in Trinidad and Tobago has the right to protest. But where this gets tricky is the terms and conditions of employment, because whilst teachers have the right to protest, one could make the argument that they were neglecting their duty and responsibility by not turning up for work.
The thing is, a lawsuit could cause a judge to settle this in the courts. And when something is subjective, all of a sudden, a lawsuit will make it very objective by setting precedent.
Essentially, some sort of interpretation as to those particular conditions and those terms and conditions.
So tutor is very lucky, and I guess this is all part of the strategy. All political operations know what country you live in, and this goes back to the common individual citizens and collective of the citizens need to now consider not just doing business as usual, because they're lucky that we don't have some sort of representation to say, now we're going to sue you.
Well,
we're going to sue tutor for damages.
Essentially, during the period of time, the students are under the charge of the teachers. And so if I send my child to school and essentially nobody's there to take care or supervise them, then it would mean
because
that...
they didn't even notify parents until after the fact.
No, actually, tutor has stated that they were going to rest and reflect at least a week in advance. So the nation was actually notified, and I don't think you can really say anything against the notification that tutor gave. Still, that there's a great level of dissatisfaction over the choice to actually rest and reflect on the first day. You see, by the way, that term, resting and reflecting, considering that for the last 2 years we've been in lockdown and teachers still had to work through online classes, and there were still remedial classes over the August vacation, as they like to put it.
Which they were paid for and they had a choice.
Exactly, they had a choice, they were paid for. So that is where the dissatisfaction lies. Quite frankly, I think what it is, the argument that Hannah Benjamin made yesterday on the station, is that teachers have a voice through the union. That is the majority union that represents the voice of the teachers. Students do not. And I think where it is wrong, unconscionable actually, is the fact that students more or less were held as hostages yesterday because teachers simply failed in their duty. Now, again, I state that I understand what teachers are asking for, and I understand the protest. And whilst I try to understand and be reasonable, I would also hope that tutor realizes that the situation, and for any union, the situation across the board, many of these individuals probably wouldn't survive in the private sector because the private sector slashed salaries, and many of them have not reinstated it to pre-pandemic levels.
That's a key point, because really and truly, with the record, right, that tutor has coming out of the pandemic with the question of reopening schools, right, that's not a good record. They don't look good. They have no goodwill, in my opinion, with parents and the public. So now, who does this rest and reflect? Who does it affect? And I go back to a video on social media that we had where a gentleman, I cannot remember your name, sir, I'm sorry, but I just want to point out and give credit where credit is due. This is not an original thought of mine. But when we had the protest, the Monday protest that blocked the highway with the fire across the roads, he pointed out, right, this is not helping your cause. You are not rallying the country based on your status of being victimized. What you're doing is causing the average citizen to say, I am inconvenienced by you. Why am I going to help you with this nonsense? Yeah. And now the average parent, why does the average parent going to stick up for the teachers? They're going to be against them because of nonsense like this.
And we have discussed that before, because it's similar to protests in the B-term. You have a police killing, the residents come out and they protest. However, the attention is actually turned away from the situation at hand to now you are affecting and inconveniencing other people. And
parents already have a bad taste in their mouth from the reopening of schools.
I think you question sometimes. I mean, the professor said it. The reason why unions take such action is simply because it works for them. And so, okay, if it works for you, we can't blame you for that strategy. However, that is where the bad taste and the ill view of unions have become so known in Trinidad. Again, I stated, they wouldn't be able to survive in the private sector because the terms and conditions of that contract, it's actually very much so, and feel free to disagree with me when you call in later on the program, but it's actually very wonderful, highly beneficial to work within the public service and the public sector as compared to the private sector. One could make that argument. Yes. But I asked Braden Roberts this morning on AM Prime precisely what he was hoping for, what was tutor's hopes, when he stated that the Minister financed the CPO goods and shall prevail. And he said, well, simple enough, come to the negotiating table and negotiate with us. What we saw yesterday was something that goes totally against the spirit of negotiations. And whilst I am not saying the actions of the CPO in terms of he should be negotiating, it should be an ongoing negotiations with the unions. It can't just be, this is what we're offering, that's it. There needs to be negotiation. What we saw yesterday from tutor goes against the entire spirit of what negotiations are.
And that's why I continue to say what was the impact of, or what would have been the impact of them not attending school yesterday or not showing up in what they term as the idea of rest and reflection. And to me, I still understand that although the CPU has stated that this is what we're able to offer, 4% is our limit at this point in time, they're still open to more negotiations. So Tutor doing that yesterday really and truly achieved nothing for them.
Tutor has no leverage, and it's not because teachers have a weak position. It's because Tutor has been doing the same song and dance over and over. Correct. Right? The only thing, and based on their words, what have they complained about? They have complained about, we are using our devices and our internet for online classes, so we need government to give us devices and to give us internet. What about our back pay? Have they complained about, what about school renovations? Have they complained about, what about our children being left behind because of the pandemic? No, they haven't. And this rest and reflect essentially just puts everybody a day further behind. But I like to point out this, really and truly, all of this resting and reflecting, one day is not, in my opinion, going to make that big of a difference for the government. And if I had a child, I don't care about one day that much. The inconvenience of the situation is more to me than what one day will lose from my child's education. However, at some point, it's not like they could take 2 months of rest and reflect. That's just job abandonment, and that's it, you're fired. So this stunt, the fact that they're going to use this stunt, they can't even go to a further extreme without taking considerably more risk to themselves anyway. And I'm sure at this point, the Ministry of Education would love to get rid of at least some of the low-performing teachers that the union is protecting. So I don't get what they're doing, because they have the only leverage you could have against the government would be to get goodwill. We are doing our job well, and they are stopping us from doing our job well. But they don't have that.
I think I disagree with you to the extent that they don't have leverage, because if they didn't have leverage, it's just how they use that leverage, put it that way. Because the mere fact that we have spent the entirety of yesterday's program discussing what Tutor's actions, the mere fact that Ian Prime this morning saw it fit to discuss that as well, the mere fact that we've spent an entire 20 minutes discussing this, shows the effect of actions such as simple thing as staying home. I think Tutor has leverage. I think it's how they go about doing it. So I disagree with you to that extent.
I would say this. I don't think they have leverage, and I would like to agree with Sean, because any sustained amount of protest action from them in terms of resting and reflecting could possibly result in them losing their jobs. So them flexing their hand or showing that they have some amount of power really did nothing for them yesterday.
Because the other aspect of what Braylon Roberts indicated, and I asked him this morning whether or not there's any expected planned actions again. And he says, well, not in mass quantities. The other thing that they're looking at is actually, which I found very interesting, they're now going from school to school. At least this is in Tobago, but I would assume that they will be doing something similar for Trinidad, and looking at the infrastructure. And what Tutor has, what teachers have available to them, is actually there's something called a refuse to work form in which they fill out. And he indicated this on the program. So that is something else they're going to look at. We're going to go to every school. We're going to see what the state of the infrastructure is. And if
that
so,
I can agree with.
You know, one thing though, the unions had leverage because the government had money and didn't want to deal with the bubble in times past. Even when the PNM took office, did not have money. They didn't want to have to deal with the unions in a heavy hand. Why? Because it's not popular. The problem is, when the government has their back to a wall in terms of finances, yes, I know, Professor, but I'm very certain that collecting more tax revenue is not going to solve all of the problems. When the government's back is to the wall, you literally cannot force somebody through concrete. So now you're pushing the situation, there's no outlet valve, and the public slowly but surely, especially after the pandemic, is not going to look favorably. So to me, they do not have the leverage that they think they have, as with the same with the other unions.
Well, just before we go to a commercial break, you said that you don't think collecting taxation will solve all of our problems, and to a certain extent, you're right. What an efficient tax collection system is going to do, which we don't have in TNT, and which again, Valmiki Arjun argued this morning, and I've heard this from multiple economists, is that it's actually going to bridge the gap in terms of our deficit, which is going to go a long way. And in future, if we can sustain that over the next few years, very much so, we'll be solving maybe not all our problems, because ideologically and our mindset, our thought has to change, and it's very difficult to change that, but financially it goes a long way.
It is affording 20% for public sector workers.
Well, 20% is just, anyway.
Not even 10.
Wow, 20%, 10%. Let's take a break here on the program now, ladies and gentlemen, and when we return, well, KKS. I'm trying to find something away from the... Yeah, we'll be right back after this.
Delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
In these COVID times, things are a little different. You may have some skepticism when it comes to going to the hospital or going into the doctor because of crowds or because of so many people being present. We are now in the world of telemedicine.
Telemedicine is the innovation of using technology to treat patients at a distance.
Zakia is here today. She's going to show us a little bit of what she does as part of her at-home exercise routine. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Good morning and welcome back to Talking Point. This morning we want to look at the issue of homelessness. When last did you drive around your area or your country or within your particular borough? I'm sure you would have seen that the number of street dwellers on the streets have obviously risen significantly, and especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we also have the issue here in Port of Spain with the closure of that center they had at Riverside Plaza. There are more persons who are now essentially out in the streets with nowhere to go, essentially. So, Sean, I know you would have mentioned this topic earlier to us. I'm sure you would have passed by that area and you would have seen the amount of persons that are now essentially homeless just based on the closure.
Even like Woodbrook, the Savannah, like just by 5-minute drive, the amount of homeless people that I see. And one of the things that Keaton and I, we spoke to a reverend who does food distribution. She works with Living Waters, even though it's technically not the same denomination. They are banding together to try to feed people who are hungry. But a lot of her clients aren't even homeless. It's people who are working that have issues feeding themselves. So now I guess the question is, what's happening to the homeless?
But I am in East Port of Spain regularly, and so yesterday in particular, I saw that they are now congregating at the downstairs area on the ground level, and they've also moved from being at Riverside Plaza itself to now being along Duncan Street. So the persons that feed them, they're actually driving along Duncan Street to feed them now. So there are a lot more people outside.
I think the issue with the closure of Riverside Plaza was the Minister of Social Development, Donna Cox, indicating that they will be placed in another shelter. And that was not the case. What's happened is that it's closed down. And bear in mind, in some instances, homeless people do not like to move. They don't like to go to another area, another community, for whatever reason. So,
well, they don't have cars, they don't have access
no.
to
Many a times, if I'm not mistaken, there will be some, provision of or means by getting there. What we're seeing now taking place across Trinidad and Tobago with the state of homeless people, and I'm not speaking about just people who may say, well, that individual is on drugs or that individual is mentally off. We're seeing a lot of families, we're seeing a lot of single mothers with their children now on the roadways. They can't find shelter, they can't find a home, they can't find the next meal and food. What is taking place is that we have a serious social issue here in Trinidad and Tobago, which again, I think we will see some form of it being addressed in the upcoming budget with social expenditure increasing, but that does not necessarily mean that those who need the help and we're seeing an increase in the amount of homeless people, that does not necessarily mean that we're going to see less of them following such a measure.
But here's my question, they close down the shelter with no alternative.
That's what I was just going to put on the table.
No.
So the minister did say something as Keaton mentioned, but you closed down the center before actually getting somewhere else for the residents to stay.
No,
exactly.
They did say that there were challenges operating the center, and I get that. But again, based on what I have seen reported, we don't know what the details are. Was it that there was violence? I just find the timing of it. Again, this is not like if it was 2014 or 2015 or even 2018. Resources are tight. Foreign exchange is affecting private businesses and donations. I get it. Okay, fine. But we've just come out of COVID. You're putting people out on the streets at a time when we already have potentially more people naturally going out on the streets without any sort of backup plan because you say you're going to have an alternative. When?
But you see, the other issue is that in TNT, there's no rehabilitative programs as such.
Absolutely correct.
That is the thing. You see, you're going to encounter problems when you have to maintain infrastructure and then you have to keep forking out money in order to provide the necessary items and food for these individuals. That is where the government and the system loses out because social expenditure should also have some form of return. My biggest thinking is that when you take a look at the investment that is associated with infrastructure across TNT, you always need labor. In fact, across TNT, generally, anybody will tell you there is a shortage of labor. And there seems to be, for whatever reason, I don't know, people that are not willing to work. If you were to take these individuals who are displaced and you're able to rehabilitate them to the effect that they can now contribute to society, by in return also getting some form of income for themselves, then you're going to see it being a system that you can sustain.
And you're absolutely correct. And I would recall, and I do recall rather, that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the government would have had to that would have caused an increase in terms of the government, the amount of money that the government has to spend from a social, standpoint. But however, as you mentioned, there are no rehabilitative programs for those people, so there are no step-by-step programs. It's just that we're giving you this $2,000 grant every month. We're giving you a $2,500 grant, and we get people into the mindset, into the mind frame that, yes, well, I don't belong to work, I can just go into the ministry and get some money every month.
How many people now, because of COVID, have realized, listen, I could survive on less money than I thought I did? And we need to realize that those that have been utilizing these grants on a basis even before COVID figured that out long before. The situation in America with their salary relief situation, and people all of a sudden, a significant chunk of the American workforce decided, hey, I don't want to work because I'm being paid not to work. So essentially now, we have to look at these things again because it's an incentive. That's the way how the human mind works at the end of the day. If I could get just enough money to survive, but I don't have to do anything.
You see, I also think what this pandemic has taught us, and you've raised a very valuable point there, is that individuals who did not have to budget before, or could have afforded not to budget, they've had to learn how to become wiser with the dollar. They've had to learn to budget. And this is the thing. People might take an insult to this, and I don't know why you would, because the truth is, Trinidadians, and many Trinidadians, maybe not all, are very senseless when it comes to the dollar and the value of the dollar. Yes. They do not prioritize their expenditure at all. Exactly. Their priorities are mixed up. They do not prioritize that at all. And that, you see, that is a huge issue that we are seeing in Trinidad and Tobago now. One might make the argument, well, why should I prioritize? You know, give me more money. I work hard. The government has money. I don't have to prioritize, you know. I never had to do this before. Cost has gone up, but my salary hasn't gone up. You see, this is the thing. If people were smarter before, people may have had savings. So the issue with the middle class is not only is it diminishing because the cost of living is going up, inflation has increased, and at the same time, the expenditure power, the purchasing power of the household has decreased. Yes, that are all facts. One fact that we have chosen to ignore is the fact that people have not prioritized. And they've totally, in instances, gotten it wrong.
And that's why many people are making the argument. You see, the party is filled with people, but then you see people on the streets complaining about the fact that they can't afford school books for their children. I mean, I'm not, in some instances, there are people who genuinely can't afford school books and other items and other necessities. But in many instances, some of the same people who claim that they can't afford it are people who are filling the parties and the clubs and the bars and whatever else.
Well, you see, I don't know to what extent that is true. Like, I really don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have these statistics.
Well, yeah, and that's what Keaton was mentioning, priorities being mixed.
But the thing is, though, law of averages says, to some extent, what you said cannot be 100% full. Correct. There will be people who are irresponsible with money. I would like to say that, look, you get that all around the world. You get people in America who's irresponsible with money, Canada, UK, etc. I think what happened was the way how our economy and society was set up, we had a fair amount of it, too much, and I think America has too much of it as well, and the UK and economies like that have too much of it as well. And then what happens is when the bubble busts, right? Now it exposes the weaknesses because we can't afford corruption, and to some extent, if you're committing fraud or if you're gaming the system, this is just another facet of that unfortunate word called corruption. We can't afford the corruption that we used to be able to afford back in 2012 or 2009 or 1994, 1992 or whatever.
I understand the genesis of your point. Believe you me, I understand what you're alluding to. But for the sake of being absolutely clear to our viewers, a nation can never afford corruption, regardless of whether we financially...
We were rich enough to afford it for 2 decades.
Do not misinterpret what I'm explaining, because again, I understand...
You're basically saying we're not condoning corruption.
Exactly. Let me get it out there. You know, but I agree with what Camilla has stated, and I agree with you. Whilst we do not have these statistics to back up our argument, it's going to be extremely difficult to actually get such statistics. You're right. I quicker see people actually saving up money to buy a carnival costume next year. Don't get me wrong, we all want to party, we all want to have a good time. But at the same time, an individual will quicker starve themselves of a meal in order to ensure that they have that money in their bank for carnival next year. Instances, yes, you've seen people taking out loans as well to go and party. And I'll be very honest with you, the cost of these costumes are absolutely ridiculous.
For what you're getting.
For what you're getting. But people fall for it because, listen, even the protest in Trinidad turns into a fete somehow. At the end of
the trade unions march last month,
the protest in Trinidad turns into a fete and a party. At the end of it all, gentlemen, one thing that we must always recognize and understand is that, yes, as much as we can blame the government in many instances, and I hold them accountable in many, many areas, the mindset of the people, and we cannot stress this enough, if we have to repeat this every day on this program and on this platform, the mindset of the people have to change in order for there to be true improvement. On a Friday, or even during the week, I have seen people buying 2 beers, which probably cost between $20 to $24, depending on where you buy it, right? Yeah. Drink 2 beers because it fills them up. The gas, the hops, and the barley. It fills up their stomach rather than going to buy a sandwich, which is cheaper than $24. You can't get sandwiches cheaper than that. right?
Well, there's 2 bears, so
right?
2 bears might work out to more than 20.
But the issue is people will quicker prioritize spending that because they're not sensible in terms of their expenditure.
It's not just that.
You know?
It's not just that. It's about trying to keep up with the Joneses and live the life that they think that they want to live.
There's a state of alcoholism in TNT as well.
But just note, and this is a sore topic, you know, this is the elephant in the room, and I'll say it again. When Satmaraj said that 60% of Tobago is employed by the THA, at the end of the day, when speaking to someone from Tobago, could not deny it. And nobody denies it. And in fact,
the THA is the majority employer.
Not just that 60% number, that was significantly lowballing it. And let's not just talk about Tobago. We have that in Trinidad, right? It's just harder to figure out because, you know, Trinidad is a bit larger and things are more spread out. It's harder to keep track of everything for an individual. Tobago, it's easier for one person to observe and figure it out. But we have that in Trinidad with regards to WASA is overblown, the port is overblown. What, you know, what else? What other government service ministry is just over bloated with workers? We had one of the union leaders, Mr. Anna, said he admitted that they did the exercise in the port and it got overblown again. Yes, the politicians have something to do with that. The politicians cause it, the unions sustain it, right? But why does it happen? Because at the end of the day, when you get a government work, you could get paid and not work.
You think you're set for life?
I'm not, yeah,
you think you're set for life.
Well, you remember what I mentioned? 2 things. First of
That's
all,
the mentality.
what I mentioned is that the mentality when I was in university, and I was very, very proud of many of the people whom I met in university, their aspirations, what they wanted to achieve, the way they spoke, the way they carried about themselves. I thought to myself the future of Trinidad and Tobago was bright. And then there was a section as well whom I met who their aspirations was to work in the public service as soon as they exited university, not because they wanted to give back to Trinidad and Tobago, because they said, I'll be set for life. That was the attitude and mentality that I saw with many students when I was in university. But you made a very important point, Sean, and I think people are too afraid to state it on air, keeping up with the Joneses here in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And this may be a thing, you know, around the world, but I'm speaking particularly for Trinidad and Tobago. You see this thing about influencers where we have to go, as soon as we see something trending, we can't afford it, but we have to go buy it because we have to remain in style or in the spotlight. We cannot afford these things. We cannot afford to purchase these things, but we are still going to do it because we have to keep up. Yes. We have to have a certain reputations. Or this girl has it, or I have to have it too. Or this guy has it, I have to have it too. The materialism.
Yeah.
And that level of having to keep up for keeping up's sake. I can't afford this lifestyle.
Which is sustained by social media to a large extent. Because that's where we see all the trends.
But you see this level of dependency.
The worst part about social media, the internet is a great tool, but the problem is it also brings in negative things.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know how the conversation goes, I mean, we started off speaking about the homeless shelter at Riverside Plaza. Very, very important. But there are so many other aspects to life here in Trinidad and Tobago, which we often fail to acknowledge. If we continue to feel that, what true progression is being made? Progression has to go beyond the conversation, gentlemen. It has to go beyond this platform.
Just a quick thought, though, with energy prices now rising because Russia cut off gas to Europe. I don't know how long that will last. We could see more inflation in TNT, folks. So we did say this is not over, and unfortunately, you know, the continued increase of the negativity, not just the sustainment of the bad situation.
It's basically a wait and see approach that needs to be adopted.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that we've been waiting and we've been seeing and we've been looking for quite some time. But again, very final point, you know, prioritize. You know, I mean, honestly, sometimes you have to be selfish and focus on yourself. But don't be selfish towards yourself, which in return could be selfish to everybody else around you. You must prioritize, you must be mature, and you must be responsible until we're able to change our mindset and our way of thinking. Remember, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses. Just remember, you have to keep up with yourself. Anyway, folks, let's take a break here. We go for news on the hour on WESN. When we return, well, we'll open up the phone lines this morning, and the conversation continues. I wonder who said it best.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Scrap iron dealers to write the World Trade Organization. NPTA disappointed with teachers' strike. Concerned parents' movement suggests bonus for teachers as was given to healthcare workers. And internationally, outcry as Chinese lockdown traps residents during earthquake. Now for the details. The Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association wrote a letter to the Director General of the World Trade Organization seeking the organization's intervention in the current 6-month ban on scrap metal exports in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago has been a member of the WTO since March 1995, which means it is required to adhere to the guidelines and policies of the organization. The association is seeking the guidance and intervention of the WTO in this matter, which they believe is important to the survival of the industry. NPTA President Kevin David says though he understands the plight of teachers, there should have been more consideration for parents and children before the decision was made to take the first day of school to rest and reflect.
It's not to say that we aren't parents, and it doesn't say that we don't have teachers among us as well, right? But as an organization, we have to stand firm in terms of what we represent. So that is why I will just take the opportunity to say that we were not satisfied. We understand, we do not agree with the teachers' approach yesterday, but we understand. And I move on from that because you see the thing about it is that we have to be careful as leaders that we don't spike that emotion in other parties that we will result in hating one another.
He says there will now be a growing concern whether an event like this will happen in the near future and the effects it could have on students.
There is a certain level of concern that has to be made in terms of, am I going to expect this throughout the rest of the term? How much more disruptions are we going to face? Because there are certain situations that affect our school systems. I mean, the infrastructural work, sometimes we have situations whereby our school may not have water, right? So there are all different sort of reasons and things that will create at that level of disturbance within our school system. So that is why we try to minimize as much as possible that loss of teaching time.
While the concerned parents' movement is calling on the government to provide some measure of compensation to teachers as they await the conclusion of negotiations in the form of a bonus like was given to healthcare workers for duties performed during the pandemic.
The concerned parent movement is in sympathy with our teachers. We know our teachers have been out there foot on foot during the pandemic and continue to do human service for our students. At the same time, we know there are teachers out there that are lazy. What we would advise as a body is that the government of Trinidad and Tobago look at our teachers in a different manner, give them a bonus or something in the time being.
In international news now, footage showing that some residents in the earthquake-hit Chinese city of Chengdu were stopped from fleeing their compounds due to COVID-19 lockdowns has sparked anger and disbelief online. Some in Chengdu say they were told to stay inside through a 6.6 magnitude earthquake on Monday that killed at least 65 people. Those that ran out say they found the exits shut due to COVID restrictions. Chengdu, home to 21 million people, is currently under strict COVID lockdown rules. Well, that was your news for the hour on WESN. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Talking Point. Of course, this is the time where we open up the phone lines. We want to hear from you, the viewers. There is a bit more things happening behind the scenes. I alluded to the fact that energy prices are rising, and our government is trying to make moves. To be fair, I think this is a good thing. Will it be executed or implemented to the best possibility? Well, we have to see what they do first. However, with that said, is there anything else you want to talk about? Any criminal matter that might have your attention? I know there was a very ironic case of one show host literally being caught doing something that it was counter to the public persona he crafted for himself. Correct. Or perhaps you might want to, again, not everybody calling about the Tutor Day of Rest and Reflection, but maybe after Tutor declared victory, I don't know who they are victorious over, right? What they were successful achieved. Maybe you might have an opinion after the fact now that we've seen maybe the fallout. So call in, let us know what you have to say. And meantime, we do have a couple other things we could talk about, but we still want to hear from you, Keaton.
Yes, the numbers on your screen.
Certainly. Well, the numbers are open. The numbers on your screen. Again, I love this platform. We've got Keaton, Sean Michael Small, and Camille Avery O'Keefe Pascal. I do not have a middle name.
Look at that. It goes 2 to 3 to 4. You know, this is not intended, folks. This is not intended. All that says is that the one most suitable to be a politician is on this side because he has 4 names, and we get less suitable as we go because we have less names. 3 names is not enough. I'm just under the mark. I don't qualify, you know, but the 4-name maestro here, you know,
I think we might be suitable to be Prime Minister. You see, people will quicker remember our names rather than. Listen, I forgot what Avery O'Keefe was, and I was working with him for the last since last year, you know. So we have a call on the line with us from Diggle Martin. By the way, folks, this is not a political campaign. Just we have a call on the line.
Speak for yourself. I'm trying to push my boy here.
From Diggle Martin. Good morning, caller. I think we've lost that caller from Diggle Martin.
Oh gosh, I don't know what happened there because I think we now got the call. Hopefully the caller could call back in. But yes, I mean,
if your service provider is TSTT, I do understand. I you know, I have to bring it up once more because what we're going into, Sean, this is our 3rd or 4th month, and TSTT has not gotten back to us yet.
They've given us the runaround, folks, in such the most blatant manner. They just exposes their inefficiencies. But let's not get into that. We have a caller.
TSTT is honestly like that one significant other who says it's not you, it's me, and then gives you the runaround for.
No, they say it's not me, it's you. That's what TSTT says.
Wait, hold on. You have experience in that?
Hold on.
We have a caller
from St. James.
Hello, good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
It's good to see that the youth, you know, talking out on these matters and so. However, probably I missed it some time ago. The Camille, it's always been referenced as former youth parliamentarian. I don't quite understand what that term is about.
Okay.
And where did it originate?
Sure. Okay, caller.
Could you explain, please?
No problem. So I did National Youth Parliament 2018, second best debater. Regional Youth Parliament 2019, National Youth Parliament again 2020, second best debater, and Commonwealth Youth Parliament 2021.
Usually, on an annual basis, there is a youth parliament in which some of the best and brightest minds across Trinidad and Tobago, and that's exactly why Sean and I didn't make the cut, actually.
Yeah.
It's some of the best and brightest minds across Trinidad and Tobago. A sense of parliament where they actually debate a motion, and you've got those who are on the side of the government, and then they're chosen at random actually, and those are the side of the opposition, and you have shadow ministers, and then you have ministers. We have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
That first topic you all discussed about the traffic, and you know, this is a problem that has always been ahead of, the problem has always been ahead of the planners. I remember coming to Port of Spain when I started to work about 30 years ago, and from San Fernando, and there was traffic. And it has not changed. The vehicles has always stayed ahead of the planners and the road infrastructure. And remember some time ago we talked about the Ministry of Planning. I don't know what are they doing, because this is the ministry that has to look after the country's infrastructure, the plans to move this country ahead. And we have not been doing anything to deal with any mass transit system.
Yeah.
We had something called PTSC, which has, if we all know, which has just kept going downwards instead of upwards. It has not even maintained itself. It has been going in reverse. And the governments have to do something about mass transit. One other thing I have to say is that another serious problem that we have is that our roads cannot take the weight that the roads are subjected to. And that has to do with a lot of these trucks and that we have on the roads that are oversized. Because our roads, let me tell you something, our roads, and the professor could talk about this, I'm sure he knows about it. Our roads have a certain level of, a certain weight that they can take in terms of a maximum weight for a vehicle. And over the years, we have brought in these massive trucks that go into the quarries that we have traversing up and down these roads. These cement trucks that we have that are oversized, that are not, those trucks are not supposed to be on our roads.
Yeah.
Well, the haulers on Ryson Road, that's the easiest example for anyone in
especially when
yes.
cable starts to go to the big.
Yes.
The focus of like Ryson Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you get, when you, I mean, it's an obvious example because literally you have the roadway curving in a very strange manner.
In last year's budget, the Minister of Finance actually he sought to address that issue, and the Minister of Works and Transport about a month ago indicated that they have ordered the necessary equipment and it's due to arrive. That's the last we've heard of it, nothing else from it thus far.
Before we answer that caller, I actually legitimately wanted to say to the previous caller, you know what we need to do to sort out this lack of planning and this lack of administration? Annual administrative reports. It is true. It is true. That lacking there and the lack of accountability of the individual technocrats and officers to do their job, and they have to wait for the politicians because the politicians are holding on to all the power. That is true. That system, the degradation of our public service. We have a caller from Chaguanas on the line.
We don't have a call on the line. Yes. We lost the call.
We lost the call, okay.
Yeah, you took too long.
No, we haven't.
I know. The call is Professor.
Good morning.
Well, I agree with your last caller, not only because he agreed with me, but we must realize that all roads go back a long way. And first they were designed for foot traffic. And then for donkey carts and things like that. And some of these roads are not suitable for heavy traffic. And we just pave them, and you have all sorts of traffic coming. And most of the landslips I see in South Trinidad, which they call it on government to fix, cannot be fixed. Those lands move. They're not suitable for heavy traffic. Even the buildings that you build in the old days, they wouldn't build concrete buildings, they build wooden buildings with posts, and every now and then they had to move the posts when the building moved a little bit. But now we're just doing these things and we expect miracles. Again, I talk about food security, and I hope you will bring it up and make sure that government publish how they intend to. They have a number of conflicting statements which make no sense. You need a comprehensive plan, and better do like Eric Williams says, to put it out for the public comment, and to get improvements from the public. So unless you're going to change your modus operandi and ask any questions.
I don't know, Camille, do you have a question? I don't have any question, but I'll speak when the caller.
That's not about, Professor, we agree with you.
No.
I agree
with me and forget it. Operandi meaning that, no, Professor, we don't have any questions for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day.
But thank you for the banter.
But on the point that he's saying in terms of the roads in South Trinidad, and I'm glad that someone finally said it. He's correct in saying that. Those roads are roads that move. If you go to Labrie in particular, near to the pitch lake, you know that they build their houses in a way that they have to be constantly moving. Their toilets are built in a particular way because they need to be moving their toilets from time to time, just based on the fact that the pitch lake actually moves and grows from time to time.
And
I don't think people understand that the pitch lake is a living thing.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, I think the key point though is there will always be things like that where it's not the government just has a magical fix.
Correct.
Some of the things cannot be
Some of those
fixed.
landscapes absolutely cannot be fixed. They weren't planned properly, so therefore the housing scheme wasn't planned properly.
Now, some of that is government, some of that is the construction.
Gentlemen, we have a call on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, guys.
Morning.
So, I see I got my wish. The three of you all understand this morning. And I also like that acronym you gave your KKS. Kindness and sincerity.
Yes.
I like that very much. Yes, so I just called to say that the tutor situation, don't mind how they try to spin it. I don't agree with that because people talking about country and patriotic and all this sort of thing, but they don't really mean it at all. They only talk it and they don't really mean it. So people have to understand that when you have children involved in these things, you have to think twice. And I only hope that the country and the people in this country could try and wake up and try and understand these things that are important for the country should be dealt with.
Certainly.
And not all this fetching and all this sort of thing they have all about. See, bad habits continue all over the place. Once you get involved in bad habits, it continues and it continues when you're off time, when you should be devoting your time to your family and your friends, you're out doing sort of nonsense. So I just wish Trinidad and Tobago all the best and hope we can get back on track and try and this is a beautiful place to live in. And gentlemen, Campbell, good to see you, my friend.
Sure.
And I thank you for taking my call this morning and have a good day.
Have a good day, caller. Thank you.
caller.
Good hearing from you. You're right. Trinidad Sydney is a beautiful place to live in.
And I like the point that he always makes in terms of acknowledging Trinidad and Tobago in terms of it's a beautiful place to live in and we have our problems, but at the same time.
But consider this, gentlemen. You know, the phrase is making your wrongs in the political debate circles internationally. Hard times make strong men who make good times, that then that brings up weak men. And I do wonder if the lack of the need to fight for survival or to work for survival is causing now a society where people are just more content to, their priorities, of course, are less responsible.
I'll tell you what, let's debate that after this call from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, caller.
Hi, guys, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. You all have me breathless this morning with 100 things to choose from, but I'll just choose one. So, Keaton, yesterday you said you would love a contract like those teachers, but let me tell you, private school teachers would love that too.
Yes.
In many cases,
yes.
In many cases, they work twice as hard for less money.
Yes.
Just an example, during lockdown, they were accessible to parents at ridiculous hours. They didn't ask for more money, they didn't ask for laptops, they didn't ask for time off, anything at all. And on top of that, some of them had camps during vacation, so there was no vacation. We had an art camp, which was absolutely amazing. But, and yesterday, primary and tertiary teachers in my home were out the door at 6:30, excited to meet their students. We had no rest and reflection like Pico de Freitas who declared victory. I mean, could you just imagine you hold the country's children to ransom? Look at Denise's kids, what they had to go through.
Yeah.
And Gatsby Dolly, I saw an interview with her. Her only comment right through, it doesn't matter what you ask her, we have a lot of work to do to move forward. Like, really?
She's still on the campaign.
She's just a joke, I think. And one last thing, consumerism has always been a thing in this country, even back when people had priorities of buying sneakers over taking, buying booklets and stuff like that and going to all-inclusive fetes. Consumerism is actually what's destroying our planet, and it's because of climate change. That's just one thing. Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
caller.
Thanks, caller.
I think, honestly, you've raised a couple of valuable points, most notably with respect to the future president. How could you claim victory? At the end of the day, I'm pretty sure that her children would have still been taught the lessons at home. She being a teacher herself, she would have taught her kids and homeschooled them. And I keep asking the question, if these teachers had to go to the bank to get a bank statement or a letter or open an account and whatnot, would their service provider be having a day of rest and reflection? If they had to call the police officer to respond to an ongoing crime, something that's taking place, what would be their response if they were told on the phone line, sorry, we can't attend to your emergency, rest and reflection? Same thing with an ambulance service or a hospital. How would these teachers respond just for one day? So for them to claim victory, especially for Antonia Tika de Freitas, I'm rather disappointed in her. She as a teacher and as a mother, you would have expected better. But then again, she is the president of a union.
Right, but Camille, I mean, we made this observation after we spoke to her. It seemed as though they were using the reopening of schools to try to use that as leverage. So, am I wrong to say I do not see their concern for the kids?
No, they don't have any concern for the kids. As I said, that's coming out of 2 years of essentially not being at school. And now it's the first day of the new, fresh, brand new school year, and you're essentially holding the kids to ransom because you want more than 4%.
Well, gentlemen, we have a caller on the line with us from Maraval. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning, fellas.
Morning.
Well, it started with 2, it's now the 3 Musketeers, led by that good lead woman who makes sure and guide you. Anyway, what I want to ask you, a couple of years ago I kept telling, when I called in on the programs, being one of your first callers, that this de Freitas lady had the earmark of being a radical idiot. And she continued to express it. I want to know when she made a statement yesterday saying that, do you know how hard it is for teachers to have to take money out of their pocket to feed all the people in their school because the school fooding program wasn't starting yesterday? What a lie. What I want to ask is, for 2 years when she was staying at home, she didn't have to put gas in her car to do nothing. She didn't have to go and buy lunch. She could stay home and cook for the whole week. Those 2 years means nothing. But all of a sudden, they are in a terrible position. They have to buy school books for the children. They have to feed the children. They have to buy toilet paper for the children. But the only thing they can't buy is honesty. Have a good day.
Wow, you see that line, that last line, caller? That is one of the most powerful lines that I've ever heard from any contributor on Talking Points. They cannot buy it. That is an excellent way to conclude.
Very, very valid points.
Certainly, I'm very glad you called in this morning.
I would hazard, I guess, the teachers that buy those lunches are part of the 20% that actually came out yesterday. Yeah. I would hazard, I guess, maybe a minority stayed home, but I would hazard the guess that most of those dedicated teachers, they actually went out yesterday, as the Diego Martin caller said, from her area.
And they were still willing. Not only did they go out, but they were still willing to, because they couldn't see any child suffer, to take their money out of their own pocket to purchase lunch.
No, but not only that, once you are part of unions, according to the regulations, you don't work. So she has essentially not been teaching since she has been the president, and the union also would pay you your money, plus you also get your salary that is due to you as a teacher.
That's why, listen, and quite
you
frankly,
are entitled to the time off.
I would just like to point out that one of the worst ministers of the previous term is a former president of Tutor. I'm throwing it out there because he was my principal for a couple of years, and I was one of the worst political jobs that they did to the person who was supposed to get the post based on merit.
Before we go to commercial break, that same individual is waiting on multiple reports to be on his desk on Monday morning, just stating. That was his famous line. I've ordered a report and I'm waiting for it to be on my desk. Very quickly, Dr. Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, I thought she was one of the better ministers. Quite frankly, in the last couple of weeks, she's shocked me and surprised me with her position and the statements that she's made, because I don't think she has a clue of what to do next or which way to turn. And as it relates to the unions could actually be, and hear me very carefully, I think, do we have to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So the unions, in my opinion, could be, if things continue like this, the government is one thing, but the unions could also be one of the major causes for the downfall of Trinidad and Tobago. The unions would not have to be so, again, this is an opinion, gentlemen, if we had a stronger, a better opposition, then quite frankly, a lot of things would probably be better.
The problem is all politicians, all administrations leading up to this one, this is not a new thing. You could argue, because I mean...
Oh, hold on. I would disagree with you. I think, and I've said it before, I think Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, when he was in opposition as an opposition leader, he was excellent. I always said I think he was excellent.
Did he oppose what the unions were doing when negotiating the government?
Not at all points, because at some point they marched together.
Yes.
Similar to what the opposition is doing now.
There, I can't disagree with you.
That's why, because this is a long
I still
term.
think that when I compare what I'm seeing with the opposition now, because the opposition obviously sides with the unions because they're opposing the government, I still believe what I see now with respect to the opposition and what I saw, Keith Rowley is far better as an opposition leader than Prime Minister.
No, but
I'm not afraid to say that.
But it seems as though he was supporting the behavior that led us to this point because it allowed the unions to act like this. With regards to the Minister of Education, I don't know what your thoughts on here is. I always thought that with regards to policy, I think I will agree with you with her communication or lack thereof. But I think, and maybe we should consider this for most government ministers, it's really the cabinet. And I don't think she's one of the chief people with regards to the party that make the decision.
Which ties into my point, because some of the decisions that she has made over the last couple of weeks, and even since becoming Minister of Education, in terms of the way she speaks and the way she carries about herself, even being a former Minister of Culture, it's totally different from what she was then. And I think, as Sean mentioned, it's cabinet who basically is in control of the decision.
This is a big ministry.
I don't think we should be fooled. I don't think it's cabinet in its entirety. I think there are very few individuals. Very few. No. I'm just stating, for the sake of being absolutely clear, that there are very few individuals, and I will not call names right now, but there are very few individuals who are calling the shots, and they're carefully selected.
Those are the ones that attend with the Prime Minister when he has to depart. So the ministers, the certain ministers, who's always photographed with him.
Yes,
when he's
exactly.
departing, yeah.
Who are always by his side, and probably the most outspoken.
Yes.
Right? They don't do anything. They're not performing in their capacity as whatever minister they may be, but they are certainly the most outspoken and have the loudest of voices.
Or the most protective.
Right? And there are reasons why they are the ones that are calling the shots, of which, again, I wish we had more time, but we do not. Gentlemen, this is where we'll have to conclude this morning's edition of the program. Camille, good seeing you. Glad that you're no longer via Zoom. You're in studio with us.
Yes, absolutely. Same here. So it's always my pleasure to be here alongside Sean and yourself this morning. First time being in studio with Sean. I've never been in studio with Sean before.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And by the way, Camille, enjoy the traffic over the next couple months.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. Keaton managed to avoid it due to circumstances for the last 2 days, but he will get his due fill
I'm
on
actually
Wednesday.
thinking that maybe I should make the sacrifice and continue,
come early.
Continue that trend. That may be in the best interest of myself and the gas that I have to pay in my car. Sean Michael Small, well, so it's good seeing you once more. Well, I think you faced it this morning. We spoke about that, but best of luck tomorrow morning, because you actually, I don't even have to wish him the best of luck. I think he can walk to work in the morning and not face any issues.
No, that will still take a significant amount of time if I had to walk. But again, just want to reiterate the point that, look, it is what it is. Whatever we have to do with COVID is still around. Also, people, be wary of the fact that the economic turmoil, as I mentioned before, is probably not going to be over anytime soon. The war is probably not going to be over anytime soon, and that means that the international politics and the disruption to trade and what that does to our energy prices, to our foreign exchange, to the price of food especially, as well as the price of other goods as well, and what that means for local businesses. I mean, the trickle-down effects are enormous. Don't take any risks. And please be careful. Please be smart with you and be responsible with your money.
Sean said all of that in one breath. Anyway, folks, listen. We can make it if we try just a little harder, as one clip Sonia stated it, but very much more so pertinent to today's society than it was years ago. We can make it if we try just a bit harder, and if we change our mindset. Trinidad and Tobago, you are beautiful, and I hope that you remain beautiful, and I hope that you fight to stay beautiful. Have a great day, And remember, as ironic as it may be, today is a good day. Have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN